Closed captioning for the Casey Malone Show is sponsored by Hunter Stevens Land Title Agency. Integrity, service, and commitment you can trust.
Oh yeah, Casey Malone is serving up local. It's time for the stories of our region, the tastes, the sights, the sounds, and the people in and around the valley. Get ready for some local flavor on the Casey Malone Show.
Today we celebrate the Ursuline Sisters' 150 years in the Valley. Author Tom Welsh's book chronicles their service, and Sister Mary Alice shares her scone recipe with me. But first, the future plans for their many ministries to continue. Sister Mary McCormick is the General Superior here at the Ursuline Order in the Mahoning Valley. The celebration of 150 years, and the book was an excellent addition to this.
Yeah, well, thank you. I can't say I'm really running the whole operation. I have a lot of help.
You're the leader. You're taking care of all the
Got to oversee it, and that's
Yes.
been a lot of fun. It really has its roots back with our founder, St. Angela Merici, who said as part of her writings, if things change, change with it. And we've really taken that to heart. And so always the sisters are really involved in what they're doing at the moment. But there is always an eye to the future. And part of that, of course, is financial management. So
Yes.
those are skills we've all learned on the job, because none of us were trained in the beginning about finance or accounting or anything like that.
And to really think about, keeping this mother house and keeping it modern.
Right.
And keeping it available to others other than just the order.
Right.
And that is really going to be the path forward.
It is.
Because this is a great building. It does have a lot of potential, and there's so many things you can do with it because of its size. I mean, assisted living, that's an excellent idea, to raise funds.
When we moved here, and that was about 60 years ago, it was a sense of this is a place that the sisters can be. Canfield is a great location, and we're right by Youngstown, we're right by Boardman, we're right by Austintown as well, and so it's been a great location for us. But always, the things we've been given by God and God's people, they're not only for ourselves, we want to share them.
Yes.
So as there are fewer of us, we made arrangements to have apartments for independent seniors, and now we're looking to having assisted living for the sisters, so they can spend the rest of their lives here and age in place, but also for lay people. And we want to continue to share our space. It's been a great blessing to us.
Right.
People have come here for lots of things, for prayer, for music lessons, for water aerobics, for silver
aerobics.
sneakers.
Love that pool. I mean, and everything is being restored. You're really updating everything.
Yes.
When I was reading the book, I noticed you came in the mid-70s.
I did.
Right at the 100th anniversary time.
It was, right.
I mean, can you believe you're here for your 50th? Doesn't that seem impossible?
Well, it does seem hard to believe it's 50 years ago.
I know. It'd be 50 years of service. So what are you doing? You're up at the university now?
I teach at St. Mary's Seminary and Graduate School of Theology. Have taught there for the last 25 years or so. And so it's been a great experience to share the education that I received on behalf of the Ursuline Sisters, to continue to share that with a new group of church leaders. It's the seminary for priests.
Yes.
It's also a place of theological training for lay people, for permanent deacons. There is a new sense of, all right, how do we proclaim the gospel of Jesus? How do we do it in this new context in which we live? There's a part that's always being faithful to the gospel, and certainly the sisters have been doing that, but we're in a new context, in a new era. So it is a time of saying we need to rethink how we do things. We need to rethink structures. We need to rethink the way that we imitate the life of Jesus and the good works that he did.
Well, we have another Dr. Sister here. Sister Dr. Patricia McNicholas. And you have really witnessed a lot of the changes of the Ursulines.
Yes, definitely. I am the last person clothed in the old traditional habit.
You really knocked down all those walls of the mystery where it's so formal and, you're not cloistered, you're really amongst everyone.
In the community and knowing the people in the community, and really we're so rooted in this community. 150 years in one community has had just such an impact on us and vice versa. We have a vision that this commitment to this community and these services, especially to the poor, the disabled, those who need special care, will continue. And we've put the system in place to enable that to continue beyond us.
What I really liked was what Bridget Kennedy said, when she said the Ursulines brought the church to the people instead of expecting the people to show up at their door. And I thought that was such a great summation for how your ministries are now, because you are out there, your outreach, it's so diverse, and I thought it was interesting how instead of everybody being in charge of each one, you now formed a big umbrella.
We did, yeah.
So now you're called the Ursuline Sisters Mission.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the rethinking and restructuring. The impetus for that, of course, came from the gospel. What would Jesus do? What would St. Angela do if they were alive today?
Right.
And part of it was, like Jesus, seeking out the people who otherwise wouldn't get noticed.
Right.
And that's what the sisters did. And it usually came from where we met them, either in a school or in a parish or somewhere that we just happened to come across them. And all of a sudden it was like, boy, they're suffering, and it seems like a really major thing, not only for them, but for other people as well. How can we help?
Right.
What can we do? And that's how it started.
At the beginning of the 80s, when we had no idea really what the AIDS, HIV, there was, it was almost a pandemic. People were so freaked out by it. And you were the first real order to step in and say, medication, they need help. A lot of them have been turned out. And that is still going strong.
It is, yeah. It started really small. Because it grew, everybody was so fearful in the beginning.
Right.
But that reaching out to individuals who were infected with AIDS, or then they're members of their families. And, once you touch a family, once you touch a small group of people, word of mouth has the way of catching on. And that's really the whole sense of taking the church to people. It's having faith, it's a sense of being rooted in faith that looks to the future and says, as long as people still need help, we're going to find ways to do that. And so there is that sense of mission, that there's always something new to be done. There's always some good work, and the sisters do it where they can still, and then our colleagues in ministry take it on too and continue to work.
Take off with the Casey Malone Show. Woo-hoo!
Last year, 115 local people took their own lives, with the majority of those individuals being men.
You can help someone who is feeling suicidal by listening without judging them.
Understand that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help.
If you think that life is better without you, or that you can't go on one more day, please give yourself more time, because life is better with you in it.
If you or somebody you know is struggling, call or text 988 today.
We are getting close. SCABA Camp is almost here. A year-round destination for adults with disabilities and their families to get away, close to home. Accessible to all, with no barriers. Donate now to GABA Camp. Help others to enjoy this unique recreational destination. For adults with disabilities and their families to enjoy an accessible camping experience. Donate to GABA Camp. Giving is living.
For over 75 years, Kamara Jewelers has been the destination for quality jewelry. Our collection has a piece for everyone, in every occasion. Whether you're starting a new chapter, celebrating a milestone, or showing appreciation for the special people in your life, you can find a piece that reflects your love. At Kamara, we're about timelessness. Our jewelry isn't just for special occasions, it's for everyday moments that deserve a touch of elegance.
Get real, get Kamara. Rulli Brothers has a great choice of quality cheeses. We use our relationship with Old World Houses to specially select the product and then have it custom cut and packaged by our own local artisans. At Rulli Brothers Market, our family is in the store.
Shop C-Max Northside Appliance in Struthers, the local appliance store that beats big box prices every day.
3 generations serving Youngstown, Ohio, soon to be our 4th.
You better come on in my kitchen.
Well, it is an honor to have one of the stars of the Ursuline Sisters of Youngstown book right here in my kitchen. Sister Mary Alice Coble, right here, center stage in the book when you took your final vows.
That was the day I entered the community. It was when I got the habit.
And you know, it started out you were all teachers. I mean,
we were.
You taught, and what was your subject?
I taught elementary, so I taught almost every grade in the elementary grades, and then after 9 years of teaching, I became a principal at St. Joseph in Austintown.
Really?
Then I was the principal at St. Rose in Girard. Then I was the principal at St. Charles in Boardman.
You know, grass did not grow under your feet. When one door shut, you found another avenue how to serve.
That's right, because we responded to the needs. You know, at different times in history, a different need would surface, and many times the Ursuline Sisters would step up, and that's all chronicled in the book.
It is,
Tom
and he did a
great
good job, didn't
very
he?
good job.
Because I mean, that was a lot to wade through.
Absolutely.
But I did think, I really, this is a great book. Honestly, even if you're not Catholic, I think it's a history of our area and the world, and how, you know, you were affected and how the whole world, it just really is a great history. And now we're gonna make some scones.
Yes.
And when I found out that you really, you've perfected this recipe, huh?
I've been making it for a while, yes.
And I mean, she's very exact. I mean, all of these, because it is a science. So we are going to make fruit scones, and you're not going to believe how easy this is. We're not waiting for the dough to rise or anything. So let's go over the ingredients.
For this recipe, you will need 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/3 of a cup of sugar, a tablespoon of baking powder, 1/3 of a teaspoon of salt, 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter, chilled and cut into slices or little cubes, 3/4 of a cup of dried sour cherries, or you can use craisins, yellow raisins, or any other dried fruit, and 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. We're going to add the flour.
All right, you don't sift it or anything, just all-purpose flour.
Sugar.
So much sugar in there.
No, 1/3 of a cup. Salt. Baking powder. And I just swish that around a little bit to mix them up. Then the butter, which is chilled and cut into little pieces. And so I just mix this in as you would for pie crust, I guess, just until the butter is broken up. And you don't want to make it too small, because part of the rising in the scones is that the butter melts and raises the dough up. And
you can't really use your hands because you don't want that butter to melt.
That's
so
exactly
That's
right.
why you have to use your pastry cutter. I'm learning a lot. I'm not much of a baker, I'll have you know.
So this looks done.
Okay, so it's kind of crumbly.
It's crumbly, little chunks of butter. Then you add the fruit.
First, huh? The fruit goes in first.
Right with the cream. So the fruit
okay.
and the cream. And then mix this up. And this is where it can get a little testy, because it's easy at the beginning, but once that flour starts to absorb, it gets a little thick.
And what's the yield on this? How many will this make?
12 of the size that I make. So it's going to rest for 2 minutes now, and then we'll come back and mix all that loose flour into the dough. I'm just going to take this dough now and just try to tighten it up a little bit, sort of like kneading it, but just getting all that loose flour mixed in.
So you're just going to put it into one big ball?
I am. All right, then what I do is just divide this dough in half to make 2 circles, 2 little patties. So I just eyeball it. And then form this into a little disc, sort of, till it's about a 1/2 inch thick.
So you want it to kind of be shaggy.
Yeah.
You know, is that the right word to use?
The edges, yeah.
A little shaggy. Okay.
All right, there you go. Try to make them both the same depth, because then they'll cook the same.
Right, you want them to cook evenly. Now you brought this.
I did. A friend of mine, I borrowed it from her. I've made scones in that. It's an official, I guess it's an official scone pan.
Yes.
And they sell them on Amazon, but what they are is just little partitions already. And what you do is just stuff the dough into each of these little triangles.
And then you have them all
now
uniform.
that's right, they all come out the same. Now this dough does not fill 16 squares, it only fills about 12.
Oh, I see.
Because
Okay.
this recipe makes 12 scones. I did bring my own pan though, because I'm used to baking on that pan, and I just wanted to make sure it worked the same way. Then here's the trick, you just cut it into 6 wedges. So this.
Oh, and I preheated the oven to 400 degrees, by the way. That's very important. I always forget to mention that.
Then I just take these, and they do need a little space in between. If the cherries or the raisins or whatever fruit, if they're sticking out on the pan, I just sort of tuck them in because they tend to burn. The last step is just to sprinkle them with sugar, and they are ready to go.
So we'll start watching this at 13 minutes. Okay. Just in case these didn't work out, this is her made. She brought her own, just in case. And these look delicious. Now, what kind are these?
These are cherry.
Oh, okay, I like this.
These are cherry and raisin. I mixed them together. And the ones that we made today were craisins.
This is really good.
They are good.
They're so flaky and crumbly, which I really like.
And you get that little pop of the tartness
sour
of the
tartness. I love it. Well, it was an honor to have you in my kitchen.
It was.
I am thrilled that you were here. Thank you so much.
It was a privilege for me to be here because I watch you every week, and so
You do?
now I'm.
You're not lying, are you?
No, I'm not lying. I scan those recipes and see what looks good, and I try them.
Thank you. So go to my website, CaseyMaloneShow.com, and look for the fruit scone recipe, courtesy of Sister Mary Alice, and you'll be able to make these at your house too.
Sister, they're just delicious.
Good.
Fabulous.
Fabulous.
This is the Casey Malone Show.
I'm Elizabeth Bernard. For more than 30 years, I've provided our Valley with sound legal advice. My associate Jennifer Rigetti and I will be your legal representatives if you're involved in a car, truck, or motorcycle accident. Don't try to handle it yourself. We'll navigate the red tape of dealing with doctors, medical insurance, and all the obstacles that you'll face. Remember, there are no upfront fees on personal injury cases, and hiring a lawyer does not mean you have to go to court.
Call attorney Elizabeth Bernard, local legal experience for more than 30 years.
Locally owned, Hurricane Health and Wellness will help you weather the storm of your weight loss struggles. Safe and discreet, our experienced telemed team will prescribe the proper weight loss medication. Powerful weight loss solutions. Hurricane Health and Wellness. Locally sourced is good, whether it's ingredients or a bank. And that's why my bank is Farmers National Bank. Since 1887, Farmers has remained rock solid through every economic condition. Having a bank with a history of safety, soundness, and conservative management is a must. It all boils down to this. You need a bank that will help you reach your goals. I do too, and Farmers is mine. Farmers National Bank, rock solid. Well, I'm here at Leanna's Books with esteemed local author Tom Welsh. Also, former classmate at the Academy.
That's right.
And you've written a lot of books about Youngstown, Strauss's, classic restaurants, Jewish Youngstown, and now you've done a really big pivot from Jewish Youngstown to the Ursuline Sisters.
In a sense, going home, because we're both alumni of the schools.
Exactly. We both graduated from Ursuline, and actually we started our education together at Ursuline Preschool.
Right.
We used to carpool together.
That's right. Well, there's a saying that looking into the past is like entering a foreign country, and that was about the case with the Ursulines, because obviously we both had a relationship with the Ursuline sisters.
Right.
But when you go back to the 1870s, for instance,
really,
I mean, we're
not many people you could refer to on that.
That's right. Not any, of course, right. And there are voices because of newspaper articles and journals and documents like that. But the fact is, Youngstown was very different. The religious community was very different. And at that point, of course, they were cloistered religious orders, so very different than they are today in terms of what they're able to do, and very much pushed in the direction of education, which was the great need at the time.
Well, I really like the way you presented the book because it's world history, local history, and then the way the sisters adapted to all the changes through time. And it really is a good way, I think, to present, the Ursuline
Yeah, I think
sisters.
you want that context, and especially when you're dealing with an international institution like the Catholic Church.
I love the pictures that are in this book. I mean, you go back to JFK's in here.
Right.
Some of the old pictures of the original convent, and then
Sure.
the newer ones with the habits and stuff. I mean, how did you collect all these photos? Because these are really interesting.
We had, one person I should mention who played a big role in getting this project together from the very beginning, not only in selecting photos and finding them, but it was Michelle Gatz. Michelle Gatz, who was working mainly as the publicity coordinator for the Ursulines at that point. And Michelle is the one who first envisioned this project. She brought it to the leadership committee. This book would not exist without Michelle Gatz, Michelle Ristich Gatz.
Well,
And
I think
that's.
you both did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I love I don't think you need to be familiar with the Ursuline sisters to appreciate this book. I think, because it is just another slice of Youngstown and the Valley that people, I think, will relate to regardless. While doing your research for this book,
Right.
what was the most surprising thing?
The most
There
surprising.
had to be something that you found unbelievable, shocking, surprise, that, you did not know about the Ursuline sisters.
Well, one thing that struck me was the novelty of their new missions. I was certainly aware of Beatitude House. I was far less aware of their work in the area of HIV/AIDS. I certainly didn't know that the only HIV/AIDS clinic in the Youngstown area was established by the Ursuline sisters, which I think a lot of people don't know.
And they still provide medication.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is
Right,
still very,
right.
very active.
And that was actually one of the hardest pieces to write because of the organic nature of that ministry. I mean, in the case of Beatitude House, you had Sister Peggy Sheets, who had a clear vision of what this should be and moved on it. The Masternicks, of course, donated the first Beatitude House, and I think Mrs. Masternick named it. But in the case of the AIDS ministry, it really developed from getting involved in a men's support group, making an appearance, announcing that they were going to come, and then everyone's waiting around. They said, well, why are you waiting around? They said, we're expecting some nuns. They haven't showed up, but they were in street clothing, so they didn't realize they were nuns. And then before long, they brought in speakers, and they became aware that some of these men were alienated from their own religious communities, their own churches. And so they said, well, we'll meet at the Mother House, so we'll have a kind of a spiritual support group. And then they realized these men had material needs, so they opened up a pantry because many of them were on food stamps and couldn't get certain items. And then they opened up a cafe, meals. Then they opened up a child service program, Casa Madre. And I think Bridget Kennedy was heavily involved in that.
Yes.
And in any case, I was talking to a friend about that. He said, I said, that was just so difficult to write because it wasn't something that was on the drawing board and realized exactly the way it was planned. It evolved. And he said, well, that's the Holy Spirit. And that's what the Ursulines would certainly
and
say.
it continues today, and
right.
people, it is not on, like mid-'80s. I mean, people don't even really think about it any longer.
Right.
But it's still here.
Right.
And it's still incurable, and there is still, needs that you have to.
Yeah, again, what I think what I found most surprising is how far ahead of the curve they were at almost every inch of this story, at every portion of the story. And that was probably the biggest surprise, is just how progressive this supposedly Orthodox group of sisters is,
right,
in terms of it meeting the needs of the times. It was a gratifying project, and I think what some people said, in fact, Ed O'Neill, who wrote the foreword, said that this is a nice story about Youngstown. This is not, it's colorful, it's engaging, but it's also a positive story. And we don't always have that.
Right, we have the mills shutting down, the mob and all that, but you're right, it is positive.
Right, and I think his motive for writing a foreword, by the way, is worth mentioning, because his start in acting began at Ursuline High School. He was an athlete who expected to have a professional career, and Sister Rosemary Dybel, the head of the theater program at the time, and she got Ed involved in something called dramatic interpretation. He was the only boy in that particular program. But
she saw something.
She saw something in him, and he started to win prizes. And so, in any case, when they're having a Christmas show called The Three Wise Guys, which was which was a play on a riff on the three magi, of course, three wise men. He got the role of the priest, interestingly enough, in this show that was about three hoodlums who have a kind of conversion experience. But in any case, it was not only a big hit at Ursuline, but it was broadcast live at WKBN. And he credits her for having planted that seed. And there are so many people like that. When you think about the number of people who have been touched by the Ursulines over the decades, it's almost incalculable, And so I think that's probably their biggest legacy, is their long-term impact on the community.
Join author Tom Welsh for a book signing on June 22nd from 11 till 2 at Leanna's Books in Austintown. The Casey Malone Show is sponsored in part by Denise and John York and the DeBartolo Corporation.